You stand in the shadow of a burning hab block, watching Imperial guards drag a trembling figure toward the pyre. The air tastes of smoke and fear, acrid promethium fumes mixing with the metallic scent of terror sweat from 1,000 watching bodies pressed too close together. The crowd surges around you like a living thing, breathing in unison, waiting for the spectacle to begin. She turns her head. Those alien eyes, not quite the right color, not quite the right shape, find yours across the sea of jeering faces. In that moment, the universe narrows to a single point of connection. You realize, with the cold certainty of a Laz bolt through the chest, that in 3 seconds you will make a choice that will define not just your death, but the damnation of everyone you've ever known. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, aren't we? Let's slow this down. Let's examine this moment, this irreversible second, frame by frame, like battlefield footage analyzed by Department Munitorum strategists. Because what you're about to witness isn't just a personal tragedy. It's a cascade failure that will consume worlds. The recognition hits you first. That split second when the abstract becomes visceral, when the execution you came to watch, because good Imperial citizens always attend public executions, transforms into something unbearably personal. You know her, you've spoken to her. You've seen her bleed real blood, shed real tears, display emotions that your Schola Progenium training insisted were mere mimicry of human feeling. But her fear is so familiar, her desperation so human. The Imperial guards, their carapace armor gleaming like beetle shells in the pyre light, shove her forward with practiced efficiency. They've done this before, hundreds of times. The rhythm is automatic: drag, position, secure, ignite. Another day's work in service to the Emperor's vision of human purity. You watch her stumble, catch herself, straighten with what dignity remains to her. Even now, even facing immolation, there's something in her posture that refuses to break completely. And that's when the impulse strikes. It's not rational. Nothing about what you're feeling makes sense according to 40,000 years of human survival doctrine. Every sermon you've ever heard, every prayer you've ever recited, every lesson drilled into your skull since childhood screams that what you're contemplating is not just wrong, it's species betrayal of the highest order. But love, you're about to discover, doesn't consult Imperial doctrine. Your legs move without conscious command. One step, then another. The crowd parts before you, not from respect, but from confusion. Why is someone walking toward the pyre? Executions are spectator events. Participation is reserved for authorized personnel only. The first guard notices you when you're 5 meters away. His bolt pistol comes up in a smooth arc, targeting servos whining as the weapon's machine spirit locks onto your center mass. His vox grill crackles. Citizen, return to designated viewing area immediately. You don't stop walking. 4 meters, 3. The second guard's weapon joins the first, both barrels tracking your movement. Behind you, the crowd's excited murmur shifts to uncertainty, then alarm. Someone shouts a warning. A woman screams. Children begin to cry. 2 meters, her alien eyes widen as she realizes what you're doing. Her mouth opens not to speak, but in pure shock. Whatever she expected from this moment, it wasn't salvation. It wasn't compassion. It wasn't love. 1 meter. The first guard's finger tightens on his trigger. Neural pathways fire. Synapses spark. The decision to shoot crystallizes in his mind with mathematical precision. But human reflexes, even augmented human reflexes, require time to process unprecedented situations. He hesitates for exactly 1/3 of a second, trying to understand why an Imperial citizen would approach an alien with something that looks dangerously like tenderness. That 1/3 of a second is all you need. Your lips meet hers as the flames begin to lick at her feet, and the universe ends. Not literally, of course. The materium continues its inexorable expansion. Stars burn, planets turn. The great game of chaos continues unabated, but for everyone watching, every man, woman, and child pressed into this mob of witnesses, reality undergoes a fundamental shift. The impossible has just occurred. A human being has voluntarily touched alien flesh with love instead of hatred. The silence that follows is not merely the absence of sound. It's the absence of comprehension. 1,000 minds struggling to process an event that their conditioning insists cannot happen. Good Imperial citizens do not kiss Xenos. Good Imperial citizens do not show mercy to the alien. Good Imperial citizens understand that genetic purity is humanity's only defense against a universe that wants to corrupt, consume, and control every aspect of human existence. You taste smoke on her lips, metallic and bitter, like blood mixed with burning fuel. Her skin is warm, not the cold, reptilian texture your propaganda films suggested, but warm and soft and terrifyingly, recognizably alive. For one heartbeat, 2, 3, you exist in a space between worlds, no longer fully human according to Imperial doctrine, but not yet dead according to Imperial justice. Then the bolt pistol barks. The shot takes you center mass, explosive round detonating inside your chest cavity with the force of a small grenade. Pain becomes your entire universe for the brief span of time it takes your nervous system to shut down. You fall backward, arterial spray painting abstract patterns across the execution platform, your body already beginning the process of cooling that will make you indistinguishable from the 1,000 other corpses this world processes daily. But something has changed, something irreversible. Every person in that crowd, from the smallest child clutching his mother's robes to the oldest veteran of a dozen xenocide campaigns, has witnessed an act of forbidden love. They've seen a human being choose compassion over survival, mercy over doctrine, connection over purity. The image will burn itself into their neural pathways with the permanence of acid on metal, and that changes everything. Because in the Imperium of man, witness to heresy carries the same taint as participation in heresy. Your kiss didn't just condemn you and her. It condemned every soul who saw it happen, every mind that processed it. Every heart that, for even a microsecond, understood why you did it. The child who will spend sleepless nights wondering why the alien looked so afraid. The mother who recognized familiar grief in an inhuman face. The veteran whose hand trembled on his weapon because something about her reminded him of his dead daughter. The priest whose faith cracked, just slightly, at the sight of love transcending species. All of them are contaminated now. All of them have been exposed to the most dangerous idea in the galaxy, that aliens might be capable of suffering, that they might deserve compassion, that the foundational principle of imperial civilization, the absolute necessity of xenophobia, might be wrong, and that contamination will spread. Your mother, when she learns what you've done, will remember every kindness you ever showed, every gentle word, every moment when your humanity shone through imperial conditioning. She'll wonder if those same impulses that made you a loving son also made you a traitor to the species. The doubt will eat at her like a cancer. Your friends will examine their own thoughts for signs of similar weakness. Have they ever felt sympathy for the alien? Have they ever hesitated before pulling the trigger? Have they ever wondered if humanity's survival truly requires the extermination of every other thinking species in the galaxy? Your coworkers will whisper about warning signs they should have noticed. Your neighbors will report suspicious behavior to local Arbeitspatrols. Your former lovers will submit to intensive interrogation to determine if you ever expressed subversive thoughts during intimate moments. The ripple effects expand outward like shockwaves from an orbital bombardment, touching every life that ever intersected with yours, questioning every relationship, contaminating every memory. Your kiss becomes a contagion of compassion in a civilization built on the systematic extermination of everything different. And somewhere in the depths of an inquisitorial fortress, records begin to accumulate, files begin to thicken, investigations begin to unfold. Because your moment of love didn't happen in isolation. It's part of a pattern that stretches back through generations of imperial history, the slow, persistent erosion of humanity's commitment to its own survival, every forbidden romance between human and alien, every act of mercy shown to Xeno prisoners, every moment of hesitation before executing an alien child. They're all connected, all part of the same disease that threatens to undermine everything the Emperor built. Your kiss was not the beginning of this corruption, But it might be the moment when the Imperium decides the infection has spread too far to cure. The execution platform burns bright against the night sky, consuming both your corpse and hers in flames that will be visible from orbit. Clean, purifying fire that reduces complex emotions to simple ash, but the damage is done. The image persists. The question remains. In a universe where love between species is heresy, what happens to humanity when humans choose to love anyway? We're about to find out. How does a civilization build hatred so deep that love becomes heresy? It begins with children. Picture a classroom on any imperial world, not the polished academies of Terra or the military academies of Cadia, but the standard educational facility that shapes billions of young minds across the galaxy. The walls are bare plasteel, functional and gray. The only decoration is a massive aquila mounted above the instructor's podium, its golden wings spread wide in eternal vigilance. 30 children sit in perfect rows, their heads shaved according to Departamento Munitorum regulations, their gray uniforms identical down to the last button. They range in age from 6 to 8, old enough to absorb complex ideas, young enough for those ideas to become fundamental assumptions about reality. The instructor, a thin woman whose eyes hold the particular hardness that comes from witnessing too many alien atrocities, speaks in the measured cadence of liturgical recitation. What is the first duty of the imperial citizen? To hate the alien, the children respond in unison, their high voices echoing off metal walls. What is the second duty of the imperial citizen? To fear the alien. What is the third duty of the imperial citizen? To destroy the alien wherever it may be found. This isn't education in any sense our world would recognize. This is conditioning, behavioral programming designed to create reflexive, visceral responses to alien presence. The children don't understand the historical context. They don't know about the Age of Strife, the Men of Iron, the countless human colonies consumed by Xeno predators during humanity's expansion into the stars. They don't need to understand. They only need to feel. The instructor activates a hollow projector. The classroom fills with three-dimensional images of alien forms, orc boys brandishing crude weapons, Tau fire warriors in advanced battle suits, Eldar aspect warriors moving with inhuman grace. Each image is accompanied by carefully curated audio, screams of human victims, the wet sounds of feeding, the crackling of burning cities. Observe the Xeno, the instructor intones. Study its form, learn its weaknesses, but never forget it exists only to corrupt, consume, or control humanity. Every alien draws breath stolen from human lungs. Every alien thought is focused on our destruction. One child, a small boy with intelligent eyes and questions that run deeper than his classmates, raises his hand. Teacher, why do the aliens want to hurt us? The instructor's face hardens. This is the question they've been trained to answer, the doubt they must eliminate before it can take root. The alien does not think as we think, Joachim. It does not feel as we feel. Its mind is fundamentally different from ours, twisted by evolution on hostile worlds, shaped by instincts we cannot comprehend. To seek understanding of alien motivation is to risk contamination by alien thought patterns. She pauses, letting the weight of that statement settle into young minds. The Emperor in his infinite wisdom has shown us the truth. Diversity is weakness. Unity is strength. Humanity's survival depends on the purity of human thought, human genetics, human spirit. The alien represents chaos. We represent order. The boy nods, but something in his expression suggests the answer isn't entirely satisfying. The instructor makes a mental note to monitor his development closely. Questions are dangerous. Curiosity about alien psychology is the first step toward sympathy. Sympathy is the first step toward collaboration. Collaboration is the first step toward species betrayal. In our world, racism is learned behavior, ugly, destructive, but ultimately artificial. It can be unlearned through exposure, education, empathy. Children who grow up around diversity typically develop more tolerant worldviews. Contact reduces prejudice. In the 41st millennium, xenophobia is vaccination against extinction. This isn't hyperbole. This isn't imperial propaganda twisted beyond recognition. This is documented historical fact, carved into the genetic memory of humanity by 10,000 years of brutal experience. Consider the lair, encountered during the Great Crusade. Beautiful, artistic, apparently peaceful. Their society produced music so achingly lovely that human composers wept upon hearing it. Their architecture defied conventional physics to create structures of impossible grace. First contact protocols were followed perfectly. Cultural exchange programs were established. Joint artistic endeavors flourished. Corruption was subtle, so subtle that it took decades to detect. Lair music contained psychic frequencies that gradually altered human brain chemistry, making listeners more susceptible to chaos influence. Their architecture incorporated sacred geometries that served as focusing arrays for demonic entities. Their art was literally infectious, spreading Slaneshi corruption through visual exposure. By the time the contamination was discovered, entire human worlds had fallen to decadence and excess. Millions died in orgies of violence so extreme that reality itself began to tear. The Lair Crusade became a xenocide campaign not from hatred, but from necessity. Every trace of Lair influence had to be burned from human space to prevent further corruption. Or examine the Interrex, a human civilization that had achieved peaceful coexistence with multiple alien species. Their capital world was a paradise of cooperation, their technology enhanced by Xeno innovation, their culture enriched by alien perspectives. They had solved the problem that plagued the rest of the galaxy. They had found a way for different species to live together in harmony. They also inadvertently introduced chaos worship to the Luna Wolves Legion. A single alien artifact in an Interrex museum, a weapon called the Anatheme, was enough to corrupt Horus himself, setting in motion the events that would tear the Imperium apart and damn humanity to eternal war. The Interrex had thought they could control the danger, contain the risk, benefit from alien knowledge without paying the price. They were wrong. These aren't isolated incidents. Imperial archives contain thousands of similar cases. Human colonies corrupted by Tau pheromone manipulation, worlds consumed by Tyrannid advance scouts, entire subsectors lost to Genestealer cult infiltration, civilizations driven insane by Eldar psychological warfare. Each case began with the same fundamental error, the assumption that aliens could be trusted, understood, or safely coexisted with. The Emperor understood this truth long before his ascension to the Golden Throne. During the Great Crusade, he encountered species after species that seemed reasonable, peaceful, even beneficial to humanity. The diasporics nomadic fleets that had lived alongside humans for centuries, the Lair and their transcendent art, the Interrex and their stable confederation. Again and again, closer examination revealed the same pattern. Alien presence meant human corruption, not because aliens were necessarily evil, but because they were alien. Their thought patterns, evolved on different worlds under different pressures, were fundamentally incompatible with human psychology. Contact led to contamination. Contamination led to corruption. Corruption led to extinction. So the Emperor made a choice that defined the next 10 millennia of human history. Rather than risk the gradual erosion of human genetic and psychological purity, rather than gamble humanity's future on the possibility of peaceful coexistence, he chose the path of absolute xenophobia. "Suffer not the alien to live" became more than a slogan. It became the foundation of imperial civilization, not from cruelty, but from compassion, not from hatred, but from love, love for humanity itself, powerful enough to sacrifice every other form of life in the galaxy. The children in that classroom, chanting their daily liturgies of hate, are receiving the distilled wisdom of humanity's darkest experiences. Every word they memorize, every image they study, every reflex they develop is purchased with the blood of human worlds that tried to show mercy to the alien. They don't need to understand the historical context. They don't need to know about the Lair or the Interrex or the 1,000 other civilizations that fell to alien corruption. They only need to feel the absolute, visceral certainty that aliens represent existential threat to everything they hold dear. Because in the 41st millennium, that certainty is the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. The instructor moves to the next phase of the lesson. The holoprojector displays new images, human children playing together, laughing together, learning together. The audio shifts to sounds of joy, discovery, accomplishment. The contrast is deliberate and devastating. This is what we protect, the instructor says softly. This is what we preserve: human laughter, human dreams, human love. The alien would corrupt all of this, twist it into forms that serve alien purposes. Our hatred protects what we hold most sacred. The children nod with the solemnity of tiny priests receiving divine revelation. They don't realize they're being programmed to see the universe in terms of absolute moral clarity. Humans good, aliens evil, no middle ground, no exceptions, no mercy. But occasionally, rarely, the programming fails. A child grows up and encounters an alien prisoner, sees fear in inhuman eyes, recognizes familiar grief in alien features, responds with compassion instead of conditioned hatred, makes the choice to show mercy despite everything they've been taught, makes the choice to kiss her before she burns. And when that happens, the entire edifice of imperial xenophobia reveals its greatest weakness. It depends on the systematic suppression of humanity's most noble impulses. Compassion becomes weakness. Mercy becomes treason. Love becomes heresy. The Imperium has succeeded too well in its mission. In making humans inhuman enough to survive in an inhuman universe, it has created a civilization that punishes its own citizens for being human. Your kiss wasn't just an act of rebellion against imperial doctrine. It was an act of rebellion against 10,000 years of human survival strategy. A moment when love proved stronger than fear, connection more powerful than conditioning, humanity more persistent than hate. And that, more than any alien invasion or chaos incursion, represents the greatest threat to imperial civilization. Not the corruption of humanity by alien influence, but the corruption of humanity by its own suppressed nature. The children in that classroom will grow up to become soldiers, administrators, citizens, parents. Most will serve the Imperium faithfully, their conditioning intact, their hatred pure and focused. They will kill aliens without hesitation, burn Xeno artifacts without curiosity, report signs of alien sympathy without remorse. But some, a few, will remember the questions they weren't allowed to ask, the doubts they weren't permitted to voice, the moments when their natural human empathy struggled against artificial imperial programming. And when they encounter aliens in the flesh, when they see Xeno suffering with their own eyes, when they're forced to choose between obedience and compassion, some of them will make the same choice you made. They'll choose to be human, even if it damns them, even if it damns everyone they've ever known, even if it damns entire worlds. Because in the end, that's what humans do. We love, we connect, we show mercy even when mercy is dangerous. We choose compassion even when compassion is condemned. The Imperium built its hatred deep, made it systematic, made it foundational to human civilization. But they couldn't build it deeper than human nature itself. And that's why your kiss was never just about you and her. It was about the fundamental question that haunts every imperial citizen, every human soul living under the Aquila. Is humanity worth saving if saving it requires us to stop being human? The flames that consumed your bodies were bright enough to see from orbit, but the question you raised burns brighter still, spreading from mind to mind, heart to heart, generation to generation. In the 41st millennium, love is heresy. But heresy, as the Imperium has learned to its cost, has a way of spreading. Who was she? The question haunts you now, doesn't it? As we peel back the layers of imperial propaganda and systematic dehumanization, as we move beyond the comfortable abstractions of Xeno threat assessment and species purity doctrine, we arrive at the most dangerous inquiry of all. What did you see in her face that made love possible? Let's reconstruct her story. Not the sanitized version filed in Departmental Munitorum records, subject classification, Xeno tertiary threat level, minimal disposition, scheduled immolation, but the actual experience of a living being whose journey ended in flames and imperial righteousness. Her capture. You weren't there for the beginning, but you've pieced together fragments from overheard conversations, guard gossip, the kind of details that slip through administrative cracks when bureaucrats assume no one cares about xenobiography. She was taken during a routine sweep of the underhive levels, not a military operation, not a response to invasion or uprising, but simple urban maintenance, the kind of periodic cleansing that keeps imperial cities functionally pure. She'd been living in the spaces between spaces. Subsection 7 Gamma Null, according to the municipal charts, though the locals just called it the Forgotten. A maze of abandoned hab units, derelict manufactorum spaces, and condemned transit tunnels that existed in the gaps of official city planning. Perfect hiding places for the unwanted, mutants, heretics, deserters, and the occasional alien refugee who'd somehow survived imperial xenocide campaigns. Imagine her daily existence in those months before capture. Scavenging for food in waste recycling centers, sleeping in maintenance shafts, always listening for the sound of approaching footsteps, learning to recognize the difference between civilian foot traffic and military patrols by the rhythm of their movement. Developing the hyper-awareness of the perpetually hunted. How did she communicate with the human outcasts who shared her exile? Her vocal cords evolved on a world with different atmospheric pressure, different gas composition. Human speech was probably as difficult for her as her native tongue would be for you. But necessity is a powerful teacher. Basic trade Gothic, learned through repetition and desperate need. Enough words to ask for food, water, shelter. Enough phrases to warn of danger. The sweep team found her during a routine purge operation. Arbeit's units moving methodically through the Forgotten, armed with Auspex scanners calibrated to detect non-human genetic signatures. She had maybe 30 seconds of warning. The electronic whine of detection equipment, the heavy footsteps of combat boots, the harsh mechanical voices of armed men who'd done this 1,000 times before. Did she run? Of course she ran. Survival instinct transcends species barriers, but the Forgotten was a maze built by humans for humans. She knew the hiding places, but not the escape routes. She understood the layout, but not the psychology of those who'd hunt her through it. The Arbeits had been doing this for decades. They knew every bolt hole, every secret passage, every desperate trick employed by fleeing prey. They herded her like hunters driving game, closing off options one by one until she had nowhere left to go except into their waiting hands. The capture itself was probably anticlimactic. No dramatic last stand, no final battle against overwhelming odds. Just exhaustion, desperation, and the inevitable mathematics of predator versus prey. She collapsed in a dead-end tunnel, gasping air that burned her alien lungs, and waited for the restraints to close around her limbs. They dragged her to a holding facility in the mid-hive levels. Standard Imperial detention protocol, isolation, disorientation, systematic breaking of resistance prior to interrogation. But interrogating an alien presents unique challenges. How do you break someone whose psychology you don't understand? How do you identify lies when you can't read facial expressions? How do you apply psychological pressure to a mind that evolved under completely different evolutionary pressures? The interrogators tried everything in their arsenal. Physical torture, naturally, pain is universal, even if pain tolerance varies between species. Sensory deprivation, chemical enhancement, psychic intrusion by sanctioned psychers, sleep deprivation, temperature manipulation, sonic warfare tuned to frequencies that would shatter human eardrums. She endured it all with a dignity that must have been profoundly disturbing to her captors. Not stoic acceptance, that would have been comprehensible, even admirable in its way, but something else. A kind of patient sadness, as if she understood exactly what was happening to her and why, and forgave her torturers for their inability to see her as anything other than a threat to be neutralized. That was when you first saw her. You were there on official business, administrative review of detention protocols, or facility maintenance, or one of the 1,000 bureaucratic functions that keep Imperial machinery grinding forward. You weren't supposed to interact with prisoners. You weren't supposed to make eye contact. You weren't supposed to see her as anything other than a Xeno classification awaiting proper disposal. But something went wrong with your conditioning. Some flaw in your Imperial programming, some crack in the xenophobic armor that should have protected you from forbidden sympathy. When she looked at you through the electromagnetic field of her cell, you didn't see an alien. You saw a person in pain, a person afraid. A person who had lost everything and everyone she'd ever known, and was now waiting to die alone in a place where no one would mourn her passing. The recognition was gradual, not love at first sight. That's a romantic fiction that has no place in the 41st millennium, but the slow, dangerous acknowledgement of shared experience. She was afraid, and you understood fear. She was in pain, and you understood suffering. She was alone, and you understood isolation. You began finding excuses to visit that section of the detention facility. Equipment inspections that took longer than necessary. Administrative reviews that required multiple verification visits. Maintenance schedules that somehow always needed your personal attention during times when prisoner monitoring was at minimum levels. Communication started with gestures. Basic sign language that transcended species barriers. A slight nod to acknowledge her presence. A gesture toward food to ask if she was hungry. Simple questions answered with crude approximations of human body language. Then words. Halting, broken Imperial Gothic learned through desperation and repetition. Her accent was wrong, her grammar tortured, but meaning came through. She told you fragments of her story, not the grand narrative of her species or the political circumstances that led to her exile, but personal details. The way sunlight looked through the canopy on her homeworld. The taste of a fruit that had no Imperial equivalent. The sound of her mother singing lullabies in a language that would die with her. You began to bring her things. Nothing that would be noticed by security reviews. Small improvements in food quality. Minor adjustments to cell temperature. A blanket that was marginally cleaner than standard issue. Tiny gestures of compassion that violated every regulation in the Imperial Prison Administration manual. She responded with gratitude that was heartbreaking in its magnitude. Someone was being kind to her. Someone was acknowledging her personhood. Someone was treating her as something other than a biological contaminant awaiting sterilization. The moral complexity of your situation was devastating. Imperial doctrine wasn't wrong about the dangers of alien contact. Her species, you learned gradually through fragments of conversation, had been involved in conflicts with human colonies. Not as aggressors necessarily, but as participants in the endless cycle of violence that characterized relations between humans and aliens. People had died. Human people. Possibly people you would have known, liked, loved. But that abstract knowledge couldn't compete with immediate, personal experience. Whatever crimes her species had committed, whatever threats they might pose to human survival, she was just a frightened individual who had shown you nothing but gratitude for the smallest kindnesses. The Imperial perspective would say you were being manipulated, that her apparent vulnerability was carefully calculated to elicit exactly this response, that alien psychology was fundamentally deceptive, designed by evolution to exploit human empathy as a weapon against human survival. Maybe they were right. Maybe every word she spoke, every gesture of thanks, every moment of apparent connection was part of some elaborate xenocide plot that your limited human intelligence couldn't comprehend. Maybe your conditioning should have held. Maybe you should have reported your uncomfortable feelings to proper authorities for remediation. But in the end, none of that mattered, because what you saw in her face wasn't alien cunning or species manipulation. It was recognition. The same recognition you'd felt when she first looked at you through that cell barrier. She saw you too. Saw past your Imperial uniform and conditioning and programming to the human being underneath. Saw someone who was capable of kindness in a place designed for cruelty. Someone who could choose compassion despite everything he'd been taught about the necessity of hatred. The horror wasn't that she was alien. The horror was that she wasn't alien enough. Her fear was recognizable. Her gratitude was familiar. Her capacity for connection was thoroughly, devastatingly human. And that recognition made her execution not just a security procedure, but a moral catastrophe. Because if she could suffer as humans suffer, if she could feel as humans feel, if she could love as humans love, then what the Imperium was planning to do to her wasn't genocide. It was murder. You carried that knowledge for weeks as the execution date approached, watched her grow weaker as interrogation took its toll, saw hope fade from her eyes as she realized that no rescue was coming, no mercy would be shown, no appeal would be heard. She was going to die, and die badly, for the crime of existing in human space. The night before her scheduled execution, you made a decision that violated every regulation, every protocol, every rational principle that governed your existence as an Imperial citizen. You stayed late at the facility. You disabled security monitors in her cell block. You opened the electromagnetic barrier that separated you from her. You talked, not about politics or species relations or the grand strategic necessities that governed Imperial policy, about small things. Personal things, the way memories feel when you know you'll never make new ones, the way hope dies when you finally accept that no one is coming to save you, the way love persists even when love is hopeless. You didn't kiss her then. That moment was still hours away, still waiting for the crowd and the flames and the perfect storm of circumstance that would make the impossible inevitable. But you held her hand, felt the warmth of alien skin, the familiar pressure of fingers seeking comfort in extremity, and realized that you were no longer just an Imperial citizen performing administrative duties in service to the Emperor's vision of human purity. You were someone who cared about her, someone who would grieve her passing, someone for whom her death would be a personal loss rather than a bureaucratic footnote. The Imperium had spent 30,000 years perfecting the machinery of genocide. They had refined the process of dehumanization to an art form. They had created systems designed to prevent exactly the kind of connection you discovered. But they hadn't counted on the persistence of human nature itself, the stubborn refusal of love to respect appropriate boundaries, the way compassion could grow in the most unlikely soil, fed by nothing more than shared recognition of each other's fundamental humanity. When the guards dragged her toward the pyre the next morning, when the crowd gathered to witness Imperial justice in action, when the flames began to lick at the base of the execution platform, you made your choice. Not because she was innocent. In the 41st millennium, innocence is a luxury that few can afford. Not because she was harmless. In a universe of constant warfare, no one is truly harmless. Not because the Imperium was wrong about the dangers of alien contact. Imperial xenophobia exists for solid, documented, historically validated reasons. You made your choice because she was her. Because in her face, you had seen the face of someone worthy of love. Because her death would diminish something in the universe that ought not to be diminished. Because someone should mourn her passing, and you were the only one who would. Your kiss was an act of recognition. An acknowledgement that she had existed, that she had mattered, that her life had meaning beyond Imperial threat assessment protocols. In a civilization dedicated to the systematic erasure of everything non-human, you chose to remember one alien as an individual. That choice doomed you. It doomed her. It doomed everyone who witnessed it, but it also did something else. Something the Imperium hadn't planned for, hadn't prepared for, hadn't developed countermeasures against. It proved that love was still possible, even here, even now, even in the face of certain death and universal condemnation. And once you prove that love is possible, you prove that hope is possible too. The child sees it first. Marcus Aurelius Valdres, age 10, son of a mid-hive administrator, pressed against the execution platform barricades with the desperate energy that only children bring to public spectacles. He's been waiting for an hour in the crowd, bouncing on his toes, craning his neck for the best view of what promises to be the most exciting event of his young life. Public executions are celebrations in the Imperium, festival days when work stops, schools close, and entire communities gather to witness the righteous application of imperial justice. Marcus has been to dozens of them, heretics burned, traitors shot, mutants flayed alive for the education and entertainment of loyal citizens. Each execution serves as both punishment and pedagogy, demonstrating the inevitable fate of those who transgress against the Emperor's will. But this one is different. This one features a Xeno. Marcus has never seen a live alien before. The holovids in school show them as monsters, grotesque caricatures designed to trigger revulsion and fear. Orc savagery, Tau manipulation, Eldar arrogance, dark Eldar cruelty. The aliens of Imperial propaganda are clearly, obviously, reassuringly inhuman. The creature they drag onto the platform doesn't match any of those images. She's small, smaller than Marcus expected. Her proportions are wrong, limbs too long, head slightly oversized, skin with an unusual texture that catches the light strangely, but not wrong enough to eliminate recognition. She could be a human with unusual mutations. She could be someone's sister if you didn't look too closely. That's Marcus's first mistake, looking too closely. Her fear is familiar. The way she stumbles when the guards shove her forward. The way her head turns, searching the crowd for something, sympathy, understanding, hope, that everyone knows she won't find. The way her shoulders shake with what could be tears, if aliens were capable of tears. Marcus has seen fear before, in school children facing punishment, in civilians during Arbeits raids, in his own reflection when thunder crashes too close to home. Fear has a universal language, and this alien speaks it fluently. That's when you break from the crowd. Marcus watches in fascination as you push through the press of bodies, moving against the flow of spectators who are backing away from the execution platform. His 10-year-old mind struggles to process what he's seeing. Why is someone approaching the Xeno? Executions are spectator events. Participation is forbidden. The guards raise their weapons. The crowd's murmur shifts to alarm. Someone screams a warning. Marcus feels his mother's hand clamp down on his shoulder, trying to pull him back from the barrier, but he resists with the stubborn strength of childhood curiosity. He has to see what happens next. You reach the platform. The alien's eyes widen. Her mouth opens in what might be surprise or relief or terror, Marcus can't tell which. The first guard's finger tightens on his bolt pistol trigger. Neural pathways fire. Synapses spark. Your lips meet hers as the flames begin to rise. Marcus's world ends. Not literally, of course. He continues breathing, continues standing, continues occupying physical space in the material universe. But every assumption that has structured his 10 years of existence suddenly becomes questionable. Every lesson he's learned about human nature and alien nature, and the fundamental incompatibility between species, suddenly requires re-examination. The kiss lasts less than 3 seconds before the bolt pistol barks, and you collapse in arterial spray. But those 3 seconds contain infinity. In that brief span of contact, Marcus witnesses something that his Schola Progenium training insists cannot exist: love between human and alien. The silence that follows is not merely the absence of sound, it's the absence of comprehension. 1,000 witnesses struggling to process an event that their conditioning insists is impossible. Good Imperial citizens do not show mercy to Xenos. Good Imperial citizens do not touch alien flesh voluntarily. Good Imperial citizens understand that genetic purity is humanity's only defense against corruption. But Marcus saw it happen. Saw a human being choose connection over safety, love over survival, compassion over conditioning. And if it happened once, it could happen again. If one person could make that choice, others might make it too. That possibility terrifies everyone watching. Marcus's mother, Helena Valdris, finally succeeds in pulling him back from the barrier. Her grip on his shoulder is tight enough to leave bruises, but he doesn't protest. He's too busy trying to understand what he's witnessed. Why did you kiss the alien? Why did the guards shoot you? Why is everyone screaming like the world is ending? Helena knows exactly why they're screaming. She's a mid-hive administrator, responsible for processing citizenship documentation and genetic purity certificates. Her job requires intimate familiarity with Imperial doctrine regarding human-alien contact. She understands the implications of what Marcus has just witnessed. Exposure to heresy carries the same taint as participation in heresy. Every person in this crowd, from the smallest child to the most faithful servant of the Emperor, has now been contaminated by witnessing an act of forbidden love. The image will burn itself into their memory with the permanence of laser etching. They'll remember your kiss in quiet moments, dream about it in unguarded sleep, wonder about it during prayers and devotions. Helena tries to shield Marcus from what comes next, but children are remarkably persistent when their curiosity is engaged. He watches over her shoulder as Arbeit's units move through the crowd, taking names, recording faces, identifying witnesses for subsequent interrogation. He sees the fear in adult faces as they realize that being present at an execution has transformed them from loyal spectators into potential conspirators. The execution platform continues burning, consuming both your corpse and the aliens in flames bright enough to see from orbit. Clean fire that reduces complex emotions to simple ash, but the contamination has already spread. The question has already been asked. The impossible has already been proven possible. 40 meters away from Marcus, Senior Guardsman Victor Krent struggles with a different kind of recognition. He's the one who fired the shot that killed you, and 30 years of military service have taught him to process violence as a necessary tool of Imperial governance. He's killed heretics, traitors, mutants, and aliens with the mechanical efficiency that marks a true professional soldier. But something about this situation feels different, wrong somehow. Not the killing itself. That was justified according to every regulation in the Imperial Guard manual, but the circumstances that made killing necessary. Krentz has been present at hundreds of executions. He's never seen a civilian voluntarily approach an alien prisoner. Never witnessed anything resembling the tenderness with which you touched her face. Never had to make the split-second decision to shoot someone who appeared to be motivated by love rather than malice. The shot was clean. Center mass, explosive round, instant termination. Textbook application of lethal force against a citizen engaged in forbidden contact with xenobiological material. But the image of your face in that final moment haunts him. You weren't angry. You weren't afraid. You looked almost peaceful, like someone who had finally found the courage to do something they'd been planning for a long time. Krentz has seen that expression before, on the faces of martyrs, saints, heroes of the Imperium who sacrificed themselves for the greater good of humanity. But martyrs die for the Emperor's glory, not for alien compassion. Saints sacrifice themselves to protect human lives, not to comfort Xeno prisoners. Heroes choose death in service to their species, not in defiance of it. What does it mean when someone displays the emotional markers of martyrdom while committing an act of species betrayal? What does it say about Imperial doctrine when love becomes indistinguishable from heresy? These are dangerous questions. The kind of questions that lead to commissarial investigation, psychological evaluation, possible execution for doctrinal deviation. Krentz has seen what happens to guardsmen who ask too many questions about the righteousness of their orders. But the questions persist anyway, eating at his professional certainty like acid on metal. He'll spend the next several weeks trying to forget what he witnessed. He'll increase his devotional prayer schedule, attend extra ecclesiarchy services, volunteer for additional combat deployments against clearly hostile Xeno forces. Anything to restore the comfortable moral clarity that your kiss has stolen from him. It won't work. Once you've seen love described as heresy, you can't unsee it. Once you've witnessed someone choose compassion over survival, you can't pretend that choice doesn't exist. Once you've been forced to kill someone who looked like a saint, you can't forget what that killing cost you. Father Matthias Corvin stands at the edge of the crowd, his ecclesiarchy robes marking him as a representative of the Emperor's divine will. He came to this execution to deliver the traditional benediction over Xeno remains, to sanctify the flames that would purify human space of alien contamination. Standard procedure. Routine religious administration. Your kiss has transformed routine into catastrophe. As an ecclesiarchy priest, Corvin is responsible for the spiritual welfare of everyone present. That includes conducting the purification rites necessary to cleanse witnesses of heretical contamination. But how do you purify 1,000 souls who have witnessed love? How do you cleanse minds that have seen compassion displayed toward an alien? How do you restore faith in people who now know that imperial doctrine can be violated by someone who looks like a saint? The standard purification protocols assume that heretical exposure is involuntary. Accidentally witnessing chaos rituals, inadvertent contact with prohibited materials, unintentional exposure to corrupting influences. The cleansing rites are designed to remove contamination from unwilling victims, but everyone in this crowd chose to be here, chose to witness the execution, chose to remain present when you approach the platform instead of fleeing to safety. Their contamination is self-inflicted, which makes it infinitely harder to cure. Corvin begins the process immediately. Emergency purification rites conducted on-site to minimize the spread of doctrinal corruption. Mass confession, group absolution, collective prayers of renunciation. Everyone present must formally denounce what they've witnessed, declare their loyalty to imperial xenophobia, and submit to spiritual cleansing. Most comply without resistance. Decades of conditioning ensure that imperial citizens will participate in any religious ceremony that promises to restore their standing in the emperor's eyes. They repeat the words, perform the gestures, demonstrate appropriate levels of horror at your transgression, but Corvin can see the doubt in their faces. The questions they don't dare voice, the seeds of heretical thinking that your kiss has planted in fertile soil. Some contamination runs too deep for surface cleansing. Some questions, once asked, cannot be unasked. He'll spend the next month conducting individual interviews with every witness, trying to identify those whose faith has been compromised beyond repair. Standard inquisitorial cooperation protocol. Anyone showing signs of persistent doctrinal deviation will be referred for enhanced interrogation. Most will pass the screening. Most will convince themselves that what they witnessed was meaningless aberration, temporary madness, isolated incident with no broader implications. Most will return to their lives with their imperial conditioning intact, but some won't. Some will remember your kiss as proof that love is possible even in the darkest circumstances. Some will carry that memory like a hidden flame, warming themselves with the knowledge that someone somewhere chose compassion over survival. And some of those will make similar choices when their own moment comes. Helena Valdris finally succeeds in dragging Marcus away from the execution platform, but she can't drag him away from what he's witnessed. They walk home through streets that seem subtly changed, as if the city itself has been altered by what happened in the central plaza. Marcus asks questions with the relentless persistence that only children can maintain. Why did the man kiss the alien? Why did the guards shoot him? Why is everyone so upset? Why are the priests conducting purification rites? Why can't they just forget what happened and go back to normal? Helena tries to answer with appropriate imperial orthodoxy. The man was obviously insane. Alien contact produces temporary psychosis. The guards were protecting public safety. The priests are cleansing spiritual contamination. Everyone will forget once proper procedures are followed. But her answers sound hollow even to her own ears. Marcus is too young to recognize the doubt in her voice, but not too young to sense that something fundamental has changed. The world revealed in your kiss is not the world described in imperial doctrine. Love exists between species. Compassion transcends genetic boundaries. Connection is possible even across the vast gulf that separates human from alien. That night, Marcus dreams of alien faces that look almost human, of fear that speaks a universal language, of someone choosing love even when love costs everything. He'll carry those dreams for the rest of his life. They'll influence his choices in ways he'll never fully understand. When he encounters aliens in the flesh, and in the 41st millennium, such encounters are inevitable, he'll remember your kiss. Remember that someone once chose mercy over doctrine. He might make the same choice himself. The ripple effects spread outward from the execution plaza like shock waves from an orbital bombardment. Every witness carries the contamination home. Every family member hears the story. Every friend receives a whispered account. Every coworker learns what happened through gossip and rumor. Your kiss becomes a contagion of compassion in a civilization built on systematic hatred. The idea spreads from mind to mind, heart to heart, generation to generation. Love is possible. Mercy exists. Someone chose connection over safety. The Imperium will respond with characteristic efficiency. Mass interrogations to identify the contaminated. Mandatory re-education for those showing signs of doctrinal deviation. Execution for anyone whose heresy runs too deep to cure. The machinery of xenophobia will grind forward, processing this outbreak of forbidden love like any other threat to human purity. But they can't unsee what they've seen. They can't unknow what they've learned. They can't unfeel what they've felt. Your kiss lasted 3 seconds. The consequences will last forever. The astropathic signal reaches Inquisitorial Fortress Supremus 17 hours after your death. Priority classification, Vermilion Alpha. Threat assessment, potential planetary contamination. Response authorization, unlimited. The transmission burns through 3 sanctioned psychers before achieving full resolution, their minds unable to contain the psychic resonance of what you've done. Even at interstellar distances, love proves to be a weapon against which the Imperium has few defenses. Inquisitor Vex Mortanius receives the decoded message in his private sanctum, surrounded by relics of a dozen xenocide campaigns, and the preserved skulls of heretics who once believed they could corrupt imperial space with forbidden ideas. He's been hunting alien contamination for 60 years, ever since a Genestealer cult killed his family during the Gravis III uprising. His hatred of Xenos has been refined into something approaching perfection, pure, focused, absolutely unbending. But even he pauses when he reads the initial report. Subject engaged in voluntary physical contact with condemned xenoform during public execution. Contact lasted approximately 27 seconds before termination by guard units. Estimated witnesses, 1,127 Imperial citizens including 47 minors, 12 off-world personnel, and 3 ecclesiarchy officials. Purification rites initiated immediately. Request immediate inquisitorial intervention. Mortanius has seen every form of alien corruption imaginable. Tau pheromone manipulation that turns human soldiers into willing collaborators. Eldar mind tricks that make Imperial citizens worship Xeno spirits. Tyrannid biotoxins that rewrite human genetic code from the inside out. He's witnessed the careful, systematic ways that aliens seduce, corrupt, and ultimately consume human souls. But this is different. This wasn't manipulation or coercion or psychic domination. This was choice. Voluntary, conscious, deliberate choice to show mercy to an alien in the face of certain death. That kind of corruption is infinitely more dangerous than any Xeno bioweapon. Mortanius departs for your world within 6 hours, accompanied by a full investigation team. Interrogator Chaplain Hadrian for spiritual assessment, Tech Adept Zephyr9 for biological contamination analysis, a squad of inquisitorial storm troopers for security, and Sister Superior Agatha of the Order's militant for final sanction protocols. The journey takes 11 days through warp space that seems unusually turbulent, as if reality itself is disturbed by the implications of what you've done. 3 crew members report dreams of alien faces displaying human emotions. 2 more require restraint after attempting to access restricted xenobiology files. Even the ship's Geller field fluctuates in response to psychic resonance patterns that shouldn't exist. Love, Mortanius realizes with growing horror, may be more contagious than anyone imagined. They arrive at your world to find a planet in the grip of systematic paranoia. Local authorities have initiated comprehensive contamination protocols without waiting for inquisitorial authorization. Mass detentions, mandatory genetic screening, psychological evaluation of every witness. The efficient machinery of imperial purification grinding through human lives with mechanical precision. But it's not enough. It's never enough when the contamination involves ideas rather than biology. Mortanius establishes his investigation headquarters in the former Arbites precinct, requisitioning an entire city block for security and containment purposes. The local population watches with the particular kind of fear reserved for inquisitorial operations, the knowledge that innocent and guilty alike will suffer before the investigation concludes. His first interview is with Guardsman Krentz, the soldier who fired the shot that killed you. Standard protocol. Begin with Imperial personnel, work outward through civilian witnesses, save the most contaminated subjects for last. Krentz should be straightforward, a professional soldier following legitimate orders under emergency circumstances. The interview reveals complications immediately. Describe the target's demeanor during the approach to the Xeno prisoner, Mortanius commands, his augmetic eyes recording every microexpression, every involuntary muscle twitch that might betray hidden contamination. Krentz sits perfectly upright in the interrogation chair, his military bearing intact despite 36 hours of preliminary questioning. Target displayed no signs of hostile intent, my lord. Movement was purposeful but non-aggressive. No visible weapons. No threatening gestures toward guard personnel. Describe the moment of contact. Target reached the Xeno position and initiated physical contact. Specifically, Krentz pauses, struggling with terminology. How do you describe a kiss to someone whose entire worldview depends on the impossibility of voluntary human-alien intimacy? Target placed his mouth against the Xeno's mouth. Contact lasted approximately 3 seconds before I initiated termination protocols. Characterize the target's emotional state during contact. This is where the complications begin. Krentz's conditioning should provide clear, unambiguous assessment. Alien contact produces madness, corruption, or psychic domination. The subject was obviously insane, obviously corrupted, obviously acting under Xeno influence. Simple classification, simple explanation, simple resolution. But that's not what Krentz saw. Target appeared. Calm, my lord. Focused. Like someone completing a planned action rather than someone acting under compulsion or psychotic episode. The words come reluctantly, dragged from military professionalism despite their heretical implications. Mortanius makes a note in his interrogation log. Potential contamination detected. Subject demonstrates inappropriate sympathy for heretical target. Recommend enhanced screening protocols. The investigation expands. Hour by hour, day by day, the scope of contamination becomes clearer. This isn't isolated madness or singular corruption. This is systematic erosion of imperial conditioning throughout the civilian population. Your kiss has revealed something that strikes at the heart of inquisitorial doctrine. Humans are capable of choosing love over survival, compassion over species loyalty, mercy over imperial mandate. That capability makes them infinitely more dangerous than any alien weapon. Interrogator Chaplain Hadrian conducts spiritual evaluation of the ecclesiarchy personnel who witnessed your transgression. Father Corvin, in particular, demonstrates troubling signs of doctrinal uncertainty. His purification rites were conducted correctly, his procedural responses appropriate, his administrative compliance exemplary. But there's doubt in his eyes, questions he won't voice but can't eliminate. theological uncertainties that gnaw at his faith like acid on steel. What did you feel when you witnessed the heretical contact? Hadrian asks during a session designed to probe the deepest levels of spiritual contamination. Corvin's response comes after a long pause, each word carefully chosen. Horror, my lord. Absolute horror at the violation of sacred imperial doctrine. Revulsion at the sight of human flesh touching alien corruption. Righteous anger at the betrayal of everything we hold sacred. All correct responses, all properly orthodox, all utterly unconvincing. What did you see in the target's face during the approach? Another pause, longer this time. Madness, my lord, obviously. Temporary psychosis induced by alien proximity, nothing more. But Hadrian can see the truth behind the words. Corvin saw what Krentz saw, what everyone saw, someone making a conscious choice to show mercy. Someone displaying the emotional markers of martyrdom while committing an act of species betrayal. Someone who looked like a saint while behaving like a heretic. The cognitive dissonance is destroying Corvin's faith from within. How do you reconcile a lifetime of teaching about human righteousness and alien evil with the image of human evil and alien suffering? How do you maintain belief in absolute moral clarity when you've witnessed love transcending species barriers? You can't. Not really. You can mouth the words, perform the rituals, demonstrate surface compliance with imperial doctrine, but the questions remain. The doubts persist. The contamination spreads. Tech Adept Zephyr9 approaches the problem from a different angle, biological analysis. Perhaps the contamination isn't ideological but genetic. Perhaps your kiss introduced actual alien pathogens into the witness population. Perhaps this outbreak of inappropriate compassion has a medical rather than theological explanation. The genetic screening reveals disturbing results, but not the ones Zephyr9 expected. No alien contamination detected in witness blood samples. No Xeno pathogens in their saliva. No corrupted genetic markers in their DNA. They are, by every measurable biological standard, completely pure human specimens. Their bodies show no signs of alien influence whatsoever, which makes their behavioral contamination infinitely more problematic. If their compassion isn't induced by biological corruption, if their mercy isn't the result of alien manipulation, if their doubt isn't caused by genetic infiltration, then it must be something else. It must be choice. Conscious, voluntary, irreducibly human choice. The implications are staggering. If humans are capable of choosing compassion for aliens without external coercion, if mercy is a natural human response rather than induced corruption, if love can transcend species barriers through simple recognition of shared suffering, then the entire foundation of imperial civilization is built on sand. The Imperium exists to protect humanity from alien corruption. But what happens when humanity's greatest threat comes from its own nature? What happens when the enemy isn't alien influence but human compassion? What happens when the corruption spreads not through biological infection, but through moral example? Mortanius reviews the investigation files with growing alarm. Every interview reveals the same pattern: imperial citizens witnessing impossible love and finding their certainties shaken. Every screening uncovers new doubts, new questions, new cracks in the xenophobic conditioning that holds imperial society together. The contamination is spreading faster than biological infection, more persistently than psychic influence, more comprehensively than genetic corruption. It spreads through conversation, through memory, through the simple human tendency to share significant experiences with others. By the third week of investigation, 17 witnesses have been detained for enhanced interrogation. 43 more have been flagged for continued surveillance. 87 family members have undergone preventive screening. The contamination vector expands with each passing day, following lines of personal connection that are impossible to predict or control. And still the questions multiply. Still the doubts persist. Still the image of your kiss spreads from mind to mind like wildfire through dry grain. Sister Superior Agatha prepares final sanction protocols with characteristic efficiency. As a member of the Order's militant, she's authorized to implement extreme measures when the contamination threatens to exceed containment parameters. Selective elimination of witnesses showing advanced doctrinal deviation. Comprehensive purging of affected population centers. If necessary, planetary sterilization to prevent the spread of heretical ideology to other worlds. But even she finds herself hesitating. The subjects scheduled for elimination don't look like heretics. They look like normal Imperial citizens struggling with impossible questions. They demonstrate appropriate loyalty to the Emperor, proper hatred for humanity's enemies, correct understanding of Imperial doctrine. They just can't forget what they saw, can't unsee the love in your eyes, can't eliminate the doubt that perhaps in some circumstances aliens might deserve mercy. That doubt is enough to damn them. In the Imperium, doubt is heresy. Questions are corruption. Uncertainty is the first step toward betrayal. Agatha begins the eliminations with mechanical precision, but each death weighs heavier than the last. These aren't monsters or traitors or obviously corrupted souls. These are humans whose only crime was witnessing love and finding it beautiful instead of horrible. The irony doesn't escape her. In order to preserve humanity from alien influence, she's killing humans for being too human. In order to protect human nature from corruption, she's destroying the very compassion that makes humans worth protecting. By the end of the first month, the investigation has processed over 3,000 individuals. 47 have been executed. 112 have been subjected to memory modification. Hundreds more have undergone mandatory re-education. The contamination has been contained, cataloged, and systematically eliminated. But containment isn't cure. The idea persists. The questions remain. Somewhere in the depths of human consciousness, the memory of your kiss continues to burn like a hidden flame. Love is possible. Mercy exists. Someone chose compassion over species loyalty, and if it happened once, it could happen again. Mortanius files his final report with characteristic thoroughness, but his recommendations go beyond standard contamination protocols. This outbreak represents something new in his 60 years of experience. Ideological corruption that spreads through moral example rather than external influence. Traditional countermeasures are insufficient. New approaches are required. He recommends systematic enhancement of xenophobic conditioning throughout the imperial educational system, increased psychological screening for positions involving potential alien contact, mandatory genetic therapy to eliminate empathetic responses to Xeno stimuli, if necessary, surgical modification of emotional centers in the human brain to prevent inappropriate compassion. The response from Inquisitorial High Command is swift and comprehensive. Your kiss has revealed a weakness in human psychology that threatens the entire species. If humans are naturally inclined toward compassion for aliens, if mercy is an inherent rather than learned response, if love can transcend genetic boundaries through simple recognition of shared suffering, then humanity itself is the enemy. The solution is obvious. Humanity must be improved, enhanced, modified to eliminate the dangerous impulses that led to your transgression. Love must be redefined as species-specific. Compassion must be limited to genetically pure humans. Mercy must be restricted to those who pose no threat to human survival. In short, humans must be made less human in order to remain human. The program begins immediately. Comprehensive psychological modification for all imperial citizens. Surgical enhancement of xenophobic responses. Genetic therapy to eliminate inappropriate empathy. Chemical conditioning to ensure proper hatred of the alien. Anything and everything necessary to prevent another outbreak of forbidden love. The irony is devastating. Your kiss was an act of love. The imperial response is systematic elimination of humanity's capacity for love itself. But they can't eliminate what you've already proven. They can't undo what you've already demonstrated. They can't erase the fact that, for 3 seconds, Love transcended species barriers and proved itself stronger than fear. The modifications will work. The conditioning will hold. The xenophobic enhancement will prevent future outbreaks of inappropriate compassion. Humanity will be safe from the terrible danger of its own nature. But somewhere in the depths of modified minds and altered hearts, the memory persists. Love is possible. Mercy exists. Someone chose compassion over survival. And deep in the unconscious, where even inquisitorial conditioning cannot reach, that memory burns like a star in the darkness, waiting for the moment when it will shine again. Your kiss lasted 3 seconds. The effort to eliminate its consequences will last millennia. The cascade begins 18 hours after your death with a child's nightmare. Marcus Aurelius Valdres wakes screaming at 3:47 hours Imperial Standard Time, his young voice carrying through the thin walls of mid-hive housing Complex Gamma 77. His mother, Helena, rushes to his bedside to find him drenched in sweat, eyes wide with terror, babbling about burning cities and falling stars. "They're all going to die," he whispers, clutching her nightgown with desperate fingers. Everyone's going to die because of the kiss." Helena tries to comfort him with standard parental responses. "It was just a dream. Nothing's wrong. Go back to sleep." But Marcus won't be calmed. He's seen something in his dream, something vast and terrible approaching their world like judgment itself. Something connected to what happened at the execution plaza. He doesn't know about the astropathic communication that has already reached Inquisitorial Fortress Supremus. He doesn't know about the investigation team preparing for departure. He doesn't know about the protocols that have been activated in response to what you've done. But some part of his 10-year-old mind understands the mathematics of consequence. One kiss, one moment of forbidden love, one crack in the edifice of imperial xenophobia, and now everyone pays the price. The local Arbites receive their orders at dawn, comprehensive population screening for all witnesses to the heretical incident. Standard contamination protocols, authorized by inquisitorial mandate, to be implemented immediately. No exceptions, no delays, no mercy for those showing signs of doctrinal deviation. The knock comes to Helena's door at 600 hours. 6 armed officers in carapace armor, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, their voices mechanically distorted by Vox grills. They've done this before, hundreds of times. The rhythm is automatic: identify, detain, process. Helena Valdres and Marcus Aurelius Valdres, you are required for immediate screening in connection with Investigation Sigma 77 Alpha. Compliance is mandatory. Resistance will be met with appropriate force. Helena knows better than to resist. She's a mid-hive administrator, familiar with imperial procedure. When the Arbites come to your door, you go with them. Arguing only makes things worse. Questions only arouse suspicion. The innocent have nothing to fear from loyal servants of the Emperor, except that in the Imperium, innocence is a luxury that few can afford. They're transported to Processing Center Alpha 9, a converted manufactorum in the industrial sector that has been hastily modified for mass screening operations. The familiar smell of promethium and sacred oils has been joined by something else: the antiseptic odor of medical equipment, the metallic taste of fear, the underlying stench of human desperation. Marcus counts the people as they're herded into holding areas, hundreds of them, everyone who was present at the execution plaza, everyone who witnessed your kiss, everyone whose eyes have been contaminated by the sight of forbidden love, children separated from parents, spouses divided by armed guards, families torn apart by the systematic machinery of imperial purification. All because you chose to show mercy to an alien in her final moments. The screening process is thorough: genetic analysis to detect alien contamination, psychological evaluation to identify doctrinal deviation, spiritual assessment to measure the depth of heretical corruption, physical examination to search for signs of Xeno contact, interrogation designed to break down resistance and extract hidden truths. Helena undergoes 6 hours of questioning. The same questions, repeated in different ways, designed to catch inconsistencies or reveal concealed sympathies. Did she know you personally? Had she ever noticed signs of alien sympathy in your behavior? What did she feel when she witnessed the heretical contact? Has she experienced dreams or thoughts involving aliens since the incident? Her answers are carefully correct. She barely knew you. She never noticed anything unusual about your behavior. She felt appropriate horror at your transgression. She has experienced no contaminating thoughts or dreams. All lies, all necessary lies, all insufficient protection against the systematic paranoia of inquisitorial investigation, because the truth is more dangerous than any lie. The truth is that she recognized something familiar in the alien's fear. The truth is that your kiss looked like love instead of madness. The truth is that she's been having dreams about alien faces displaying human emotions. The truth is that she's beginning to question whether aliens might be capable of suffering. Marcus's screening is different. Children require special handling. Their minds are more malleable, more susceptible to both corruption and correction. The procedures are designed to identify contamination while preserving salvageable subjects for re-education. He sits in a chair that's too big for his small frame, surrounded by medical equipment that hums and clicks with mechanical precision. Electrodes attached to his skull monitor brain activity while he's shown a series of images. Humans in various activities, aliens in various poses, mixed scenes designed to trigger emotional responses. The technician watches his neural patterns with professional detachment, noting spikes and valleys that indicate psychological contamination. When Marcus sees the image of a human child playing with what appears to be an alien creature, his brain activity shows unmistakable signs of empathy rather than revulsion. Contamination confirmed. Subject requires comprehensive re-education or elimination. But Marcus is only 10 years old. Children can be saved, their conditioning repaired, their loyalty restored. It requires intensive therapy, chemical enhancement, possibly surgical modification of emotional centers, but salvage is possible. The alternative is execution, and even the Imperium hesitates before killing children for the crime of compassion. The decision is made to attempt rehabilitation. Marcus will be transferred to re-education facility Theta Prime for comprehensive psychological modification. His memory of the execution will be suppressed. His empathetic responses will be chemically dampened. His xenophobic conditioning will be enhanced through a combination of hypnotic programming and genetic therapy. He'll emerge as a perfect Imperial citizen, loyal, obedient, properly hateful of the alien, incapable of the compassion that currently threatens his survival. Helena receives no such consideration. Adult contamination is harder to cure, more dangerous to tolerate. She's processed through the standard elimination protocols with mechanical efficiency. No dramatic final moments, no speeches about imperial justice, no opportunity for last words. Just a bolt pistol round to the back of the head and another corpse for the recycling furnaces. Her crime, witnessing love and finding it beautiful instead of horrible. The elimination program expands throughout the day. 47 executions by sunset, bodies processed through industrial crematoriums designed for maximum efficiency, families destroyed, bloodlines terminated, entire genetic legacies erased to prevent the spread of inappropriate compassion. But elimination isn't enough. The contamination has spread beyond the original witnesses, following lines of personal connection that are impossible to predict or control. Every person who heard the story, every family member who learned what happened, every friend who received a whispered account of forbidden love. The ripple effects expand outward like shock waves from an orbital bombardment. Your kiss becomes a contagion that spreads through conversation, through memory, through the simple human tendency to share significant experiences with others. Regional Arbeits Commander Marcus Helsing reviews the expanding investigation files with growing alarm. What began as a simple contamination incident has become a sector-wide crisis. Thousands of individuals flagged for screening, hundreds detained for enhanced interrogation, dozens executed for doctrinal deviation. And still the contamination spreads. The problem isn't biological or psychic, it's ideological. The idea of love transcending species barriers, once introduced into the collective consciousness, proves remarkably persistent. Traditional countermeasures are insufficient. New approaches are required. Helsing recommends escalation to planetary-level protocols, comprehensive population screening for the entire world, mass re-education programs for anyone showing signs of doctrinal uncertainty, if necessary, selective sterilization of affected regions to prevent further spread. The response from Sector Command is swift and comprehensive. Your kiss has revealed a weakness in human psychology that threatens the entire species. If the contamination cannot be contained through standard procedures, extreme measures are authorized. Exterminatus protocols are activated, not because of alien invasion, not because of chaos corruption, not because of rebellion or heresy in any traditional sense, but because one human being kissed one alien and proved that love was possible across species barriers. The decision is made with characteristic imperial efficiency. The contamination has spread too far for conventional containment. The risk of ideological infection reaching other worlds is unacceptable. The only solution is comprehensive sterilization of the entire planet. Cyclonic torpedoes are prepared. Virus bombing campaigns are authorized. Orbital bombardment platforms move into position. An entire world will die to ensure that the memory of your kiss dies with it. You sit in your holding cell, watching through a reinforced porthole as the execution ships take position in high orbit. The lights below, cities and towns and small communities where people live and love and dream, begin to flicker as the bombardment commences. Each light that dies represents thousands of lives. Families destroyed, children vaporized, lovers separated by death, dreams extinguished before they can be fulfilled. All because you chose to show mercy to an alien in her final moments. The mathematics are staggering. 1 kiss, 3 seconds of contact, 1 moment of forbidden love, 14 billion dead. You watch the lights go out one by one until the planet below is dark and lifeless and utterly empty of everything you tried to save. The alien is dead. The witnesses are dead. The children who might have grown up to show compassion are dead. The families who might have questioned imperial doctrine are dead. Everything that might have remembered your kiss has been reduced to radioactive ash. But even as you watch your world die, even as you contemplate the staggering cost of your moment of love, one thought persists: it was worth it. Not because your kiss saved anyone. It didn't. Not because your compassion changed anything. It didn't. Not because your love accomplished anything measurable or lasting. It didn't. But because for 3 seconds, love existed where it shouldn't have been possible. For 3 seconds, mercy transcended the barriers of species and conditioning and systematic hatred. For 3 seconds, you proved that humans were still capable of choosing compassion over survival. The Imperium can kill worlds. They can sterilize planets. They can eliminate every trace of contamination through the systematic application of overwhelming force. But they can't undo what you proved. They can't eliminate the fact that love is possible. They can't erase the demonstration that humans, when faced with alien suffering, are capable of responding with compassion instead of hatred. Your kiss lasted 3 seconds. The effort to eliminate its memory will consume worlds. But somewhere on some distant planet, in some future moment when another human faces another alien in extremity, the choice will be made again. Love will prove stronger than fear. Compassion will overcome conditioning. Mercy will transcend the barriers that separate species. And in that moment, your kiss will live again. The planet burns below you, beautiful in its destruction. Clean fire consuming complex emotions, reducing love and hate and hope and fear to simple ash. The Imperium's answer to the question you raised. This is what love costs in the 41st millennium. 14 billion lives. 1 entire world. The systematic extermination of everything that witnessed your moment of forbidden compassion. But as the flames reach toward the stars, as the last lights flicker out on the surface below, as your world becomes another tomb in the galaxy's catalog of the dead, one truth persists. Love was possible, even here, even now, even in the face of certain death and universal condemnation. And once you prove that love is possible, you prove that hope is possible too. Your kiss doomed a world, but it also lit a candle in the darkness of the 41st millennium. A flame that will burn in hidden hearts and secret thoughts until the day when love no longer requires the destruction of worlds to justify its existence. The planet dies, the memory persists, the hope endures, and somewhere in the void between stars, in the space where souls go when bodies are consumed by fire, you and she are together still, free from the hatred that divided you, free from the fear that condemned you, free to love without destroying worlds. The kiss continues, eternal and perfect in the only place where it was ever truly safe. In death, where even the Imperium cannot follow. The funeral pyre of your world burns for 72 hours. From orbit, the conflagration is beautiful in the way that only destruction can be. Clean lines of flame consuming the accumulated debris of civilization, reducing 14 billion lives to their essential elements, transforming love and hate and hope and fear into simple carbon and ash. The Imperial Navy crews watch with professional detachment as another threat to human purity is systematically eliminated. This is what victory looks like in the 41st millennium, not conquest or glory or triumph over external enemies, but the successful elimination of humanity's own dangerous impulses. Your kiss represented the greatest threat the Imperium has ever faced, not alien invasion or chaos corruption, but the possibility that humans might choose compassion over survival. That threat has been neutralized with characteristic efficiency. Inquisitor Vex Mortanius files his final report from the bridge of the execution ship, watching the last cities burn through reinforced viewing ports. The document will become part of the permanent record, a case study in contamination control that will guide future operations for millennia to come. Investigation Sigma 77 Alpha. Final summary. Contamination vector, ideological. Subject displayed voluntary compassion toward Xeno prisoner, witnessed by 1,127 Imperial citizens including 47 minors. Standard purification protocols proved insufficient to contain spread of heretical ideology. Casualties, planetary sterilization authorized. Estimated population, 14.7 billion. Acceptable losses in service to species survival. Lessons learned. Human capacity for alien sympathy represents existential threat to imperial civilization. Traditional countermeasures inadequate. Recommend systematic enhancement of xenophobic conditioning throughout all imperial worlds. Threat assessment. Neutralized. No evidence of similar contamination detected in surrounding systems. Emperor protects. The report joins millions of others in the vast archives of the Inquisition, another entry in the endless catalog of humanity's victory over its own nature. But Mortanius finds himself staring at the burning planet longer than strictly necessary, troubled by questions he won't permit himself to voice. Was this victory? The systematic extinction of every human being who witnessed love transcending species barriers. The obliteration of an entire world to eliminate the memory of a 3-second kiss. In the calculus of imperial survival, the answer is obvious. One world sacrificed to preserve countless others. 14 billion lives lost to protect the trillions who remain untainted by inappropriate compassion. A small price to pay for species purity. But somewhere in the depths of his augmented consciousness, buried beneath 60 years of conditioning and modification and systematic suppression of dangerous thoughts, a small voice whispers, "What have we become?" The question is treason. The doubt is heresy. The moment of uncertainty represents the same contamination that doomed your world. Mortanius recognizes the symptoms and responds with practiced efficiency, chemical enhancement to suppress empathetic responses, neural conditioning to eliminate inappropriate questions, surgical modification to prevent future episodes of dangerous humanity. Within hours, the doubt is gone. The questions are silenced. The contamination is purged. He returns to his duties as humanity's guardian against the terrible threat of its own compassion, pure and focused and absolutely certain of his righteousness. But the questions persist in places beyond his reach. In the spaces between thoughts, in the moments between heartbeats, in the darkness that exists at the edge of consciousness. What have we become? What have we lost? What does it mean to save humanity by making humans inhuman? He's not the only one asking. Throughout the Imperial fleet, in the private moments between duty shifts, similar questions arise in carefully guarded thoughts. The crew members who watched your world burn, the tech priests who calculated the efficiency of planetary sterilization, the ecclesiarchy chaplains who delivered benedictions over 14 billion corpses. All of them have witnessed the ultimate expression of imperial doctrine, the systematic elimination of love itself in service to human survival. All of them understand the necessity, support the decision, recognize the righteousness of what they've accomplished. But understanding and accepting are different things. Supporting and believing are separate concepts. Recognizing righteousness and feeling righteous are distinct experiences. Your kiss lasted 3 seconds. Its elimination consumed an entire world. The mathematics are clear, the logic unassailable, the necessity absolute. So why does victory taste like ashes? The answer lies in the fundamental contradiction at the heart of imperial civilization. The Imperium exists to preserve humanity, but preservation requires the systematic suppression of everything that makes humans worth preserving. Love becomes heresy, compassion becomes weakness, mercy becomes species betrayal. In the name of saving human nature, they've eliminated human nature itself. This is the Imperium's greatest victory, the successful transformation of humanity into something capable of surviving in an utterly inhuman universe. They've created a species that can look upon alien suffering without flinching, witness the extinction of entire worlds without doubt, commit genocide in the name of righteousness without experiencing guilt. They've made humans strong enough to endure anything, efficient enough to accomplish anything, pure enough to resist any corruption. They've also made humans incapable of the very qualities that once distinguished them from the aliens they fight, incapable of love that transcends boundaries, incapable of mercy that risks safety, incapable of compassion that doesn't calculate costs. Your kiss was a moment of pure humanity in a universe that has systematically eliminated humanity itself. 3 seconds when someone chose love over survival, connection over safety, compassion over species loyalty. 3 seconds when the impossible became possible, when the forbidden became beautiful, when the heretical became sacred. The Imperium's response was swift and comprehensive, the total obliteration of that possibility. Not just the elimination of you and her, not just the execution of witnesses, not just the re-education of the contaminated, but the complete sterilization of everything that might remember what you proved. That love is stronger than hatred. That mercy is more powerful than fear. That humans, even after 30,000 years of conditioning and modification and systematic suppression of dangerous impulses, are still capable of choosing compassion over survival. The burning planet below represents the ultimate triumph of imperial doctrine. Every trace of inappropriate love has been eliminated. Every witness to forbidden compassion has been silenced. Every possibility of similar contamination has been systematically destroyed. But triumph comes at a cost that few dare to calculate. In saving humanity from the danger of its own nature, the Imperium has created something that is no longer recognizably human. A species defined not by what it loves, but by what it hates. Not by what it protects, but by what it destroys. Not by what it builds, but by what it burns. The crews returning from your world's execution carry this knowledge in their modified hearts and altered minds. They've participated in the systematic elimination of love itself. They've witnessed the price of remaining human in a universe that punishes humanity. Most will process the experience through proper Imperial channels: confession to eliminate guilt, conditioning to suppress doubt, chemical enhancement to prevent inappropriate emotional responses. They'll return to their duties as loyal servants of the Emperor, pure and focused and absolutely certain of their righteousness. But some will remember, in quiet moments between shifts, in dreams that slip past psychological barriers, in the spaces where even Imperial conditioning cannot reach, they'll remember what they witnessed. Not just the burning of a world, but the burning of possibility itself. The possibility that love could transcend species. The possibility that mercy could exist without calculation. The possibility that humans could choose compassion even when compassion was dangerous. Your kiss proved those possibilities were real. The Imperium's response proved they were also terminal. In the 41st millennium, the greatest threats to humanity come not from alien invasion or chaos corruption, but from humanity's own persistent impulse toward compassion. Love is the enemy. Mercy is the weakness. Connection is the contamination that threatens everything the Imperium has built. So they've built a civilization dedicated to the systematic elimination of human feeling. They've created a species that can commit any atrocity in the name of survival. They've made humans so inhuman that they can endure an utterly inhuman universe. And they call this victory. The funeral pyre of your world finally gutters out, leaving behind a dead rock orbiting a distant star. 14 billion lives reduced to ash and memory. An entire civilization obliterated to eliminate the echo of a 3-second kiss. But as the Imperial fleet prepares to depart, as the crews return to their posts and their duties and their carefully regulated lives, a single truth persists in the darkness between stars. Love happened, mercy existed, compassion transcended species barriers. For 3 seconds, in the face of certain death and universal condemnation, someone chose to be human instead of imperial. Someone chose love over survival. Someone proved that the qualities the Imperium has spent millennia suppressing are still there, buried deep in the human heart, waiting for the moment when they can shine again. Your kiss was heresy by Imperial standards, but by any reasonable definition of humanity, it was the most human thing anyone did that day. The Imperium won. They eliminated the contamination, silenced the witnesses, burned the world clean of inappropriate love. They preserved human purity by sacrificing human nature. They saved the species by destroying everything that made the species worth saving. But they couldn't eliminate what you proved. They couldn't undo what you demonstrated. They couldn't erase the fact that, when faced with alien suffering, someone chose compassion over conditioning. Somewhere in the vast darkness of the galaxy, on some distant world where Imperial doctrine holds absolute sway, another human will face another alien in extremity. The conditioning will demand hatred. The doctrine will require violence. The species will expect loyalty above all else. And someone, inspired by nothing more than the persistent memory of what you accomplished, will choose love instead. They'll choose to be human in a universe that punishes humanity. They'll choose compassion in a civilization that defines compassion as weakness. They'll choose mercy in an empire that makes mercy heresy. And in that moment, your kiss will live again, not as memory or record or historical footnote, but as living reality. Proof that love is possible even in the darkest circumstances. Evidence that humans, no matter how thoroughly conditioned or systematically modified, retain the capacity for transcendent compassion. The Imperium's greatest victory is also its greatest failure. In proving that they could eliminate love, they proved that love existed to eliminate. In demonstrating that they could suppress compassion, they demonstrated that compassion was real enough to require suppression. In showing that they could make humans inhuman, they showed that humanity was something worth preserving. Your world burns in the darkness, a monument to the price of remaining human in the 41st millennium. 14 billion lives sacrificed to eliminate 3 seconds of forbidden love. But love endures, not in the ashes of dead worlds or the records of imperial archives, but in the secret places of the human heart where even the Imperium cannot reach, waiting for the moment when it will prove, once again, that humans are capable of choosing compassion over survival. That moment will come. It always does. Because no matter how thoroughly the Imperium suppresses human nature, no matter how systematically they eliminate dangerous impulses, no matter how completely they redefine humanity in terms of hatred rather than love, one truth remains. We are human, we love, we choose compassion even when compassion is condemned. And in a universe that punishes such choices, that makes us both the most dangerous and the most precious thing in existence. Your kiss lasted 3 seconds. Its memory will last forever. In the end, that may be humanity's only victory, but perhaps it's the only victory that matters.